So that's okay. They'll jump in. So we are so excited to have Susan Spears, Suzanne Schreiber, and Meredith Peebles here with us today to talk about things that affect women in business. And what I like about this isn't just for women, it's for everyone. As we talk about allyship, just navigating the world that we're in. So very great topic to have us start out with. And so we're going to do something new in this particular chat. We are going to break out into breakout rooms. And so that's a function in Zoom. Yay, I'm very excited about this. So what we're going to do is you will be assigned a breakout room for one of two topics. The first one is discovering your motivation, and the second is the balancing act. We'll be in those breakout rooms for 20 minutes. The time will be set. You'll then come back to the main room, which we're in now. So you don't move, you don't do anything. The computer should do it all, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then we'll switch. And so I will assign everyone to those rooms, and we will go from there. But first off, while I'm doing that, because it takes a little bit, I would like for Suzanne, and Meredith just to tell us a little bit about yourself. That'll give me some time to assign everyone.
Yeah, sure. I'll just go ahead and kick us off. But before we do that, I want to make sure, are there any specific instructions to give everyone if they, after the actual presentations, if there's, time for questions, is there anything specific we need to know about how to ask those questions, or will everyone be able to just chime in from their account, or is there a type in your question type?
Yes, everyone should be able to, in the breakout rooms, they can either chat or unmute and ask. Yep.
Perfect.
No restrictions on that.
Great. Well, then I'll just give everyone a quick introduction. My name is Susan Spears. I am originally from Dallas, Texas. I've been in Tulsa now for 6 years. I graduated from undergrad in 2012 from the University of Notre Dame. I stayed and I got my master's in accounting, graduated from that program in 2013, after which I moved back to Dallas. I started my career with Ernst & Young on the tax side. I interned in the audit side, so I have experience with both. I transferred up to the Tulsa office in 2014, and so I've been here for 6 years, and now I'm currently with Argonaut Private Equity, and I'm actually in the process of transitioning to a new role at Atento Capital.
Oh, awesome.
COVID is certainly an interesting time to be switching roles, but it just goes to show you there are jobs out there. So if you're a senior, don't be, too stressed out about it. It'll all work out. But yeah, my background is in accounting and finance, and I work specifically now with investments in venture capital. So that's a little bit about me. I worked with Linnell to put this event together because in my field especially, there really aren't a lot of women. And it's important that we start having these conversations so that there's some transparency and some mentorship that's available for students, specifically, female and male students, but we need to have these types of conversations so that you have just relationships that you can lean on, a safe place where you can ask questions, and start thinking about, certain issues that you might face or challenges, in the working world. So with that, I'll kick it over to Suzanne, and you can just give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Suzanne Schreiber, and I currently work for the George Kaiser Family Foundation here in Tulsa, but I am a Golden Hurricane, and I went to TU. I came here from New Mexico. Didn't really know anyone in Oklahoma at all, but TU did a great marketing job, and I came, and it really was the start of me making Tulsa my home and the place that I love so much and am really interested in serving in. So I'm really grateful for that. I also went to law school at TU, and after law school, I started practicing with a firm here in Tulsa, and It wasn't my favorite. It was defense work, a lot of insurance defense work. And I wanted to be a law clerk. And actually the partners there, a woman, was a mentor of mine. And she said, if that's really what you want to do, you need to go back and try again to be a law clerk. And so she helped me, and I clerked for several years. And then, and during that time had kids and different things happened. When I decided to stop clerking, I went helped my mom, who actually ran for governor in the state of New Mexico. So I took a brief hiatus. When I came back, I was kind of like, what should I do? So I reached out to my mentors, who are all women in Tulsa now, and ended up at the foundation. I've been there for 10 years, and I work on mostly policy there. I'm also on the local school board. I'm vice president of the Tulsa Public School Board, which has about 35,000 kids. So it's a big job, and I wanted to join this call because I'm a little bit older, not a lot, than Susan and Meredith, but I want to be able to say some different things than what was said to me when I was in a very similar meeting where Judge Seymour, who was one of the first women appointed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals from Tulsa, said, and the advice that she was giving women at that time, and she's one of the most progressive, forward-thinking, smartest people I know, but she was like, when you go to work, you're going to have to outwork these guys. You bring your lunch, you work through lunch, you stay after. And I don't want to be in a situation of telling you all that. I don't want you to have to do that because you have a family or things like that. I want to be able to give you a different piece of advice. I want you to work hard, and if it means working through lunch, great, but it isn't because that's the only way for a woman to get ahead. I don't want to have to say those kinds of things. So I'm really honored that Susan asked me to join, and Meredith, you're on.
Awesome. Thank you, ma'am. Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Peebles, and I also work in philanthropy. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Lobeck-Taylor Family Foundation. So I actually grew up in Austin, Texas, and I moved to Oklahoma in 2006 to attend the University of Oklahoma. I graduated from there in 2009, so also not in the best climate to find a job. So I definitely empathize with anyone on the call who is a senior. But also, yes, you can 1,000%, like Susan said, it is not by any means hopeless trying to find employment right now. So hopefully you walk away from this call encouraged in many ways about that. I, after college, went and worked in the energy industry. So I was there for probably 6 years, roughly. And why I'm really excited to join this call and talk about what I'm going to be talking about is I didn't have very many female role models or mentors in the energy industry. All of my bosses and really the mentors that I had to find in the industry were male. And so the advice that they were giving me early on professionally is very different from the advice that I get now. My boss at the foundation is Elizabeth Frame Ellison, so a female who is only a few years older than myself. I also work very closely with former Mayor Kathy Taylor, so you can imagine both of these women are incredible mentors and really give some great advice and definitely have helped motivate me in my career. So I'm very passionate about the work that we get to do now, and I'm excited to talk to you about that. I also just finished my graduate degree a couple of months ago. I went back to school kind of late from a graduate degree perspective compared to my peers on the call, but I received a master's in public administration from the University of Oklahoma just a couple of months ago. So it was a great way to learn more about philanthropy and nonprofit and the public sector after having spent the vast majority of my time with my internships and early career in the private sector. So happy to talk about how I made that transition and kind of what that's looked like for me.
All right, thank you much. Okay, I have the assignments ready. So you will see your screen move. Do not log out of Zoom. All right, it's getting you into the breakout room. So first up, the room I'll assign will be Meredith's. Discover your motivation. So you will start moving here as soon as I click your name. I realized I could have actually done this while y'all were talking, but that's okay. We're learning new things here with Zoom. We're learning new things. And all right. Clicking, you probably hear the clicking. All right, and you should be going. And you may have to click join. Yunqing, there you are. Okay, awesome.
A man does that, and be taking your lunch because, otherwise you're not going to get ahead. Like I said, hard work is good, but it shouldn't be that other people can do less and get the same as you, and particularly men in the workplace. And that was kind of some of the advice that I was getting in 1993 when I was a junior, and the women's law luncheon was at TU, and I attended that. So it was a kind of a similar conversation. So I told you a little bit about myself. I do have 4 kids, and they range in age from 8 to 17. And then I serve on the school board, and I work at the foundation. And I think that kind of makes some people like, how do you do all of that stuff? And you don't do it all perfectly, but you shouldn't not do any of it because you feel like you can't do it well enough. And you can. That's the thing. The standards that we hold ourselves to about, okay, if I'm going to work, I have to do this, and I have to move up and be an executive, and that's the only thing I can do. Or if I'm going to be a mom of 4 children, I'm going to have to only be a mom and only work in that realm. Or if I'm a community, engaged in my community, I can only do that, and I can only be in the school board. If you have the capacity and feel like you are enticed by all of those things, you can do it. It takes a couple of things, and that's what I wanted to talk about. And I am by no means a standard or set it or perfect or anything like that, but it takes a couple of things, and I think it's taken me, 15 years. I think about it differently at 47 than I did when I was, 30 years old and had my first baby. I definitely think about things a little bit differently. And so I made a couple of notes about kind of how I thought it's good to think about these things. And kind of where I would start is, first of all, it's important that if you do want to have a family, or if you do have a passion for serving your community, but that's not going to pay the bills. School board doesn't pay any money, but I probably spend 20 hours a week on it. And that's when there's not a huge issue going on. Right now, we're getting ready to figure out how everybody's going to go back to school and make a plan for all of that. And there's administrators that do all of that, but we have to meet and discuss and review the plans and vote on it. So I spend a ton of time on that. And I spend time on my kids, and I spend time in my regular job. And so when you're making decisions about what you want to do in your life, think about if it's, what is going to pay the bills. Is it also going to be a place that is an environment where you can be a mom and you can pursue your community passion if you have that? And also realize that they're not going to be full and complete. I personally am very interested in politics. That's kind of my passion. And there's been a couple opportunities recently that I was very interested in, but I just couldn't make it work with my employer and my family and the age of my kids. And I think some of counselors in my life kind of reminded me that that's okay. It's okay to evaluate an opportunity, pass on it, and know that it is something that you can look forward to in the future. And as we get older, like I say, 47, you start to think, oh my God, I'm never going to get anything done. The governor's, 45 years old or whatever. And how am I ever going to get to a spot of, even running for state legislature or something like that, because my own life is too busy. But the truth of the matter is that you can pass on things and make a plan and set yourself up to go forward and think about it. Just like school board it's an elected office, and I had a 2-year-old when I did it, but we made a plan and we got there, and that moment was right for me, and it fit into my whole ecosystem. At a later time, that will happen to me. There may be jobs that you really want to take or do, but it just doesn't work for the way that you want to take care of your kids or the way that you want to serve your community. And so you have to pass up that opportunity. That's okay. I think we spend a lot of time beating ourselves up when we cannot find that perfect avenue for something and make all these things work. And you think, well, if I was a different kind of mom, or if I, was more organized, then I could run for this office, or I could do this thing. Or if I was more strong with my employer and I had it, leaned on them more than this, then I could make them, understand that I could do both of these things. It's okay when you make that decision, and it's like we're on a progressive, timeline where these things are evolving, so they are getting better, and you can do these things, but you're going to have to pass a few up and like just move on. Like that's yesterday. We don't live in 2 minutes ago. We look forward. So what's next? And I think that's a really important thing for you to do, because like I say, this life of ours and the pace of it, whether you're a woman or a man, is so fast. And so it feels hard to stop and like figure out a goal and achieve that. And it is very hard. But those moments will come. And when they do, you're going to meet them, but be okay to pass some up and just say that is not going to work for me. Because I think we have kind of a social media environment or whatever, that it looks like everyone is a working mom, and then they're on the beach on vacation, and then they're out in a protest, and they can do this and they can do all these things, and that's what it looks like. And it looks like other people are not walking away from anything or putting anything away. That's not real. It's going to be things that you have to walk away from, and when you do, just let it go and move on. And I started out saying that, some of these, your employer or whatever, you want to look for places that are going to let you live kind of this balance that you're looking for. And employers are very much evolving towards that. So you'll have much better opportunities than folks did 20 years ago. But you're also going to have to push within it. There's still a lot of things that go on where you can't do things because you're helping your kids get ready in the morning or something like that, and getting ready to go to school. And there's some men that meet for coffee at 6:30 in the morning every day or something like that. You're still going to manage some things like that, but you should also be pressing against that and say, well, what about this? All of us, that same conversation happening at 12:30 today when we're all here, or have your own meetings. That's another piece of advice I wanted to say, is just because they go and have coffee at 6:30 and that's decisions, maybe being made there or postulated as they're being made there, you can also have your own kind of group and consultation. And that is a force within whatever your world is, whether it's politics or community service or making decisions at your church or making decisions at your work. Lead your own world. I think I spent a lot of time trying to, be in that world and those traditions that had been set up, just like golf. A lot of things happen in the golf course. I don't want to learn to play golf. So what is our thing that we're going to do, that we go and have conversations and ideas are generated and connections are made? I mean, that's what's happening on the golf course, right? Like, they're relaxed, ideas are being generated, networks are being made. Someone afterwards is going to call this person about, hey, remember this is, the guy that's the banker, and he's going to give a loan here, and this business is going to get going. What is our thing that we do that's that's like that, where we can be together. And it doesn't have to be a sport. It doesn't have to be getting a manicure. It can just be our own network of women or people who don't want to play golf, but we don't have to fit into all those traditions. And that's something that I really am looking forward to with the next generation of women that are coming in, and young people all the way around, is thinking about different ways that they are relaxing and having those conversations. And there's many workplaces where that is happening now, where they have a ping pong table, or they kind of have a family style lunch. We do that at the George Kaiser Family Foundation. We have a family style lunch once a week where there isn't a topic. I mean, every once in a while we'll have a lunch and learn or something like that, but we just have a set time where we can all come in and out. It's not required, but it's just, and you can share and make connections, and things that maybe are not work related, you're sharing with your coworkers. And, you know, who knows, the next thing you do know, you have like a garden co-op or something like that. I mean, things that you want to do that enrich your life, but also ultimately are going to benefit your work relationships. Those things can happen in different ways than we've traditionally seen them, you know, a drink after work or whatever. That feels very, for me personally, that's, when I come home from work, I have a longer list of things to do than I did when I left for work. to finish things that I didn't get done at work, to, you know, help my kids get ready for the next day, to think about school board. And something else I wanted to say that I just kind of really blew off for also the first 20 years of my professional life, which was the taking time for yourself, whether in exercise or meditation, or, you know, if it's your spiritual life, whatever it is, it really matters. And I did not commit to that until I was 45 years old, to beat myself up on it and think, my God, everyone's here and the dinner's not made or whatever it is. It's completely worth it, and it's an important part of a whole you and a successful person. It truly is. And so commit to that. Don't feel guilty about it. I would say, ironically, I have a spouse who is completely all for that. He would never make me feel guilty about it, but for some reason in my own mind, I still have some hangups around it. I'm really hoping that the next kind of generation of people is like, they are into self-care. They are into the idea of mental health, and whether that comes from exercise or meditation or whatever, but make the time to do that. It really is something that is so important and can really get lost if you are a really driven person. When I think about opportunities in my life that I new tasks, someone asked me to share a city or fundraiser or something like that, I have to, but I also think I'm going to have a lot to do no matter what. I recognize about myself that I fill up my bandwidth fully. I'm not a person that wants to have like an 8 to 5. I'm done. I need to come home. Just kick me out for a second.
I saw that, but you're back.
I'm back, and I didn't do anything. It came back.
Huh.
But just know who you are. Know who you are. If you know that you're going to fill up your bandwidth fully and you're going to be busy and that's your thing, then pick opportunities that you want. Don't say yes to everything, but pick opportunities that you want. And you may have to pick a few that you think you want or you feel obligated to find out and get to a place as you get older of being able to say, I did that once before. I don't ever want to do that again. You may have to pick a couple of those. That's okay. Test some things out. But you need to know who you are. If you are a person who knows, look, I know that I need to get 8 hours of sleep, and I need to have that hour before I go to sleep to start decompressing. as you learn that stuff about yourself, build your life around it. It is so important for how you are able to interact with your family, how you're able to succeed at work, how you're able to do the things that you love. I'm sure, especially like in this moment in America, you're seeing all kinds of things around you that think, I really want to be a part of that. How could I be a part of that? Or you want to join something, or you've always thought about, I would love to learn how to do spin or whatever it is. And you just feel like you're looking in on things. Be willing to try some of those things and figure out how to fit them into your schedule. I feel like I'm giving you some advice from a person who did not do that, and for a long time was just saying, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. And now some of the things that I'm committed to are bring me a lot of joy. And I've met a whole new group of people that I'm really inspired by, and intersect in the things that I do in ways that I never would have, expected. And so it is really enriching to try some things and not continually think that in order to get ahead or succeed in my work, I have to do, only that and spend only time on that, which I think is a very common problem for especially women, or just also people coming into the workplace. And I see so many more opportunities now.
Uh-oh. Is Suzanne free for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure it just wasn't me. Okay, let's see if we can get her back.
Back,
Come
maybe.
on.
I think she's back.
Okay. Yeah.
Me, am I here?
You're here. You're there. Okay. Yes.
You lost me? Oh no.
It just froze up a little bit. You never went out. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It must be, I'm sure it's probably my Zoom or whatever. But you really can do so many different things. People who are, better at starting their day at 10 o'clock and working till 8. All these opportunities, even COVID's gonna double down on that, about remote working and how people can work and be functional. And so don't be afraid to like, as I say, know who you are and then advocate for that within your place. If you are a person that's going to get a lot more done at night, there's not really any reason now that you can't do some of that work like that and be at home and start your day later. You may not be able to start out day one like that, but like, I'm personally not a great morning person. So I don't schedule anything that's with other people before 9 o'clock. In the old world, that's kind of late. But now, it doesn't bother people so much. It's like, okay. And so I feel like that's like a big milestone for me, to be able to have someone that works with me and helps me do my scheduling. And I feel really fancy saying, don't schedule anything before 9. But like, know who you are and work towards those things, because if you are a hard worker, you're going to put in the hard work. It doesn't have to start before 9. And if you just want to start at 7 o'clock, there's a lot of people in my world that are like that too, that want to get going at 7 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 or whatever. And that's when they're most successful. And the beauty of modern work is that all of those things are perfectly fine. And the 9 o'clock people and the 6:30 a.m. people can still meet at noon. It doesn't exclude anyone. So don't be afraid when you go into that workplace, to figure out what works for you and try some different things out. And when you start knowing, God, I feel like this would really be better for me, you can advocate for that. I think it's even in the early years. And I'll give one more kind of area, which is, coming in and out. Like I said, I have 4 kids. And so I had a lot of different transitions with work. When I was having my kids and taking time off. And, I tell a lot of people that are, young moms or people who are going to get ready to have their first baby or a family. I'm like, when you have that baby, you're going to know, you're going to have instincts about, I really want to go back to work. And some people, they don't want to, and they feel like they cannot do that. And those things are all okay. for me, I wanted to go back to work, and I had a lot of resources, and so I wasn't contemplating crappy scenarios, that I didn't feel comfortable with for my kids. And a lot of people aren't in that situation. They have way more, difficult decisions to make because they don't have a choice to go back to work. But as I said, in modern life, there'll be scenarios where you're going to be able to maybe have your 6-month maternity leave, but 4 of that you actually are working. You're just working from home, and you're doing your work from home, and you are there with a baby. So if you're nursing or anything like that, it's just an easier scenario. But some people don't function well at home. They need to go to an office. And so all of the kind of the working mom traditions, a lot of that has changed, but it's also going to be based on instincts about what you feel like you can do and the confidence that you have when you can, advance in that. And you might kind of like bump around a little bit in it too. You might, with your first baby, stay home longer, and your second baby not, and then take, some time later. And it might depend on what your employer's policies are. But these days, it's, in a professional position, it's a minimum, it should be, of 6 weeks paid. And you should negotiate, like I say, with everything we know about remote work, going back to work on as, part-time schedule if you feel like you can't, if you feel like you want to stay home longer and you don't have a childcare situation that you feel comfortable with. So, the whole working mom thing is just something that is really personal, and people have to figure out what works for them. But the workplace is evolving to accommodate that, and the way that the pace of life that we're living in. If people want to have a family, they'll be able to do it. They can figure out how to, balance it all. It's more and more common. You have a lot more comrades in doing it, and I think spouses, if it's a male female and like this kind of like traditional roles, spouses are much more accustomed to being a huge part of how all of this works. In my house, like my husband really does all the breakfast and all of that. And honestly, like 15-20 years ago, I think people would be, that was still kind of like, what?
Mm-hmm.
We make a lot of our plans together about, how our kids, he does a lot of the running. I feel like I'm more of like the flight director or like air traffic control. And then he's like out like, okay, we need this, go get this, go pick this kid up. He does a lot of that. And it is good to have a good partner or good support system.
So we reached our limit on the 20 minutes. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to close the room, and we're going to go back to the main room, and then we'll switch, and then this group will be with Meredith, and then you'll get a new group, Suzanne, but we'll all go back now.
And then if anybody wants questions, let me know later if anybody wants to connect.
And we'll all be back in the main room at the end too for questions.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. You can leave on your own or wait 60 seconds to go back.
And it looks like we got the other room coming in now. So
we're coming in. So awesome. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Let's see. You got Meredith. Suzanne's back. Okay. So I'm going to separate you out again to different rooms. We still got a few coming in. They may be waiting until the last 60 seconds are up. Let me see. Make sure. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, we still have a few more seconds. So if anyone has any questions real quick, if you didn't get to ask them in the breakout rooms, we do have a few seconds before I can actually redo all the rooms. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask.
Well, Linnell, we were just actually talking about, books or podcasts or any sort of recommendation that we might have. So Suzanne, I don't know if you have anything specific you would recommend, but I was just talking about the book, How Will You Measure Your Life by Clayton Christensen. I highly recommend that for everyone. And then Meredith, you had a podcast.
Yeah, it's called Second Life. And so it's always an interview setup of women that started their career doing one thing and then completely pivoted to do something else. And most of the time, the women being interviewed have started companies or, have started on an entrepreneurial journey of some sort. But specific to kind of what I'm talking about, finding your motivation, it's, people that have started out on one career path and then something ignited in them and they made that inspire them to make a big pivot and kind of their why and their what. So I'd recommend that too.
I have to say that I don't have any kind of guiding podcast or book for balancing life. A lot of, in my opinion, feeling your way through it, but also utilizing a lot of your mentors and your supports, learning through it. I'm personally listening to Seen on the Radio right now, which is it's called Seeing White. It's a podcast from Duke about whiteness. It's great. It's kind of really, really, really bends your mind. I encourage everyone to listen to it.
And what was that called? Can you say the name one more time?
It's called Seeing. Well, it's the podcast itself is called Seen on the Radio, like as seen, SCNENE. And I think this is the third season. It's from a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's called Seeing White.
Okay.
And it's really, really, really engaging and massively enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so awesome. So I think we're ready. And so I'm gonna open up the rooms again. If you happen to have been in the same room, just click leave room and then we'll get you to the right spot. But I think I did this correctly. Susan, I have you going to the balancing act now. Is that okay?
Yep, that's good to go.
Awesome. Okay, I'm opening I love Zoom. This is awesome. All right, and we should be going. We have to hit join. Dominique, are you still on?
Beck Taylor Family Foundation. Our organization exists to empower Tulsans to achieve their goals by decreasing barriers associated with big ideas. To fulfill this mission, our organization acts as a grant maker, innovator, and convener in the areas of entrepreneurship, economic opportunity, and community development in Tulsa. In addition to its portfolio of community grants focused on improving community outcomes and economic mobility through equitable activation of the geographical area centered at 11th and Lewis, so right by TU, our organization operates several nonprofit programs. These include Kiva Tulsa, which offers 0% interest crowdfunded microloans for small businesses in our community, Kitchen 66, which is an incubator focused on providing budding food entrepreneurs with the business acumen to start and scale their ideas. Mother Road Market, which is also right down the street, and it provides food entrepreneurs with the opportunity to use a small shop model to test and scale their concepts. And the Tulsa Startup Series, which is a pitch competition focused on idea and early stage businesses. So as COO of the foundation, my role specifically provides leadership, direction, and management of the foundation's administrative, financial, and operational functions. I contribute to the strategic development and implementation of the foundation's mission, specifically focused on exceptional stewardship and impact analysis in order to enhance our grant making and program operations. I also manage, supervise, and evaluate our staff, leveraging their strengths to maximize the organization while fostering a collaborative and dynamic organizational culture. And then finally, I develop and maintain strong relationships with partners and grantees to advance the foundation's mission. So as you heard me talk a little bit earlier on in the call, I didn't always work in philanthropy though. At age 19, when I was beginning my sophomore year at OU as an economics student, I learned that I actually had malignant melanoma and needed surgery immediately to remove the cancer from my body. I had surgery the week before school started and lived with my dad in a hotel room for the first month of the semester so he could drive me to all of my classes, which made me feel super uncool and help me recover. So while I knew I should get an internship that summer between my sophomore and junior year, I desperately wanted to just go home as it had been a tough year for me mentally and physically recovering from the diagnosis that kicked off the year. Luck struck though, and I managed to land just a general business internship with Texas Gas Service, headquartered in my hometown of Austin. That internship in the energy industry led to a second internship in the industry, this time with ConocoPhillips. Both summers, I worked my butt off to impress my bosses, and in doing so, the second summer, I was able to land an offer for full-time employment with Conoco. Admittedly, I wasn't super passionate about the energy industry, but in December 2009, during the middle of a recession, I was passionate about employment. And as a bonus, this was a job with really great people where I knew I would learn a lot. And I did learn so much during my almost 6 years at ConocoPhillips. But I will say one of the biggest things I learned was that rarely is anyone else going to advocate for you without ulterior motives. You have to advocate for yourself if you actually want to progress professionally in the ways that fulfill you. During the first 2 years of my career at the company, I was an analyst in the finance department. My day-to-day work was pretty predictable, but during the summer and early fall each year, I helped my group by mentoring summer interns, coordinating their program for our department, and interviewing prospective candidates on campus. This was easily my favorite part of my job. I loved mentoring and teaching people early in their careers, just as others had done for me. When a position opened up at ConocoPhillips in the University Relations Group, where I'd be able to do this work full-time, I was elated. I eagerly went to my boss to alert him of my intent to apply. While excited for me, he cautioned me about leaving the finance group for HR, especially when I was on a promising trajectory. The reality was they had my career charted for me, and my plans to leave the group to pursue something I was genuinely interested in derailed those plans. I applied anyway, got the role, and made the internal transfer. The manager of the group I was departing, so 3 levels above me, was so pissed that he didn't even talk to me. But 2 years later, after I learned all I could from the University Relations Group and was ready for a new challenge, that same manager magically welcomed me back with open arms onto his leadership team as a supervisor. He advocated for me then because it benefited him, unlike before. What I learned from this experience is that no one else was looking out for my career through the lens of fulfillment or my motivation. They were only looking at it through the lens of advancement in the traditional sense. So had I not sought the opportunity and university relations for myself, I would have not met and led more than 800 interns across the United States, met thousands of students on campus, which I loved, and developed relationships with executive leaders both in our company and at the universities we recruited from. I presented in front of hundreds of people, managed programs that touched every business unit and every location of our company in the US, and negotiated countless strategic gifts from our company to target university. This role brought me a great deal of joy and satisfaction, but it also taught me so many skills and lessons that I leverage in my role today. So had I not gone against the trend and advocated for myself, I never would have had the experience that I loved and learned in the ways that I did. So in the fall of 2015, I found myself alongside my husband and 10 other people from Tulsa running a 200-mile relay from Mount Hood to Seaside, Oregon. We're crazy. For the 30 or so hours we ran, I was in a Suburban with 5 other people from our team, including the president and CEO of the Lebeck Taylor Family Foundation, Elizabeth Ray Mellison. An incredible visionary, Elizabeth shared with me during some of the stretches while we weren't running the idea she had to support entrepreneurs in Tulsa. I was instantly blown away by her and what she wanted to accomplish. After we finished the race and spent a few more days getting to know each other in Oregon as part of the group, we were back home in Tulsa. Not even 2 days later, I had an email from Elizabeth asking if I wanted to grab a beer and talk more about her ideas. 1 beer at McNally's later, I was applying to be the Chief Operating Officer at the Lebeck Taylor Family Foundation. Don't get me wrong, I was terrified to apply. I was comfortable in my current role. It was predictable and safe, guaranteed long-term upward mobility. But at the same time, I was growing bored. The challenges that did present were not the ones I was on fire to resolve. Predictable work also meant mundane at times. And that guaranteed upward mobility was tied to the unpredictable retirement timelines of those above me. And frankly, those ended up being way more long-term than I ever had known. If I wanted to be motivated and fulfilled again, I knew that I needed to make a big change, even if it terrified me. So I applied and I got the job. And while the years I spent before in the energy industry equipped me with the leadership skills, financial acumen, and program management background necessary for me to excel in this role, I'll be honest, I was instantly fraught with feelings of inadequacy when I stepped into it almost 5 years ago. I was completely clueless about philanthropy and thought that there was no way that at 27 years old, I was ready to be a COO. And honestly, rather than reminding myself of the strengths and the talents I was bringing to the organization as a result of how hard I had worked and the roles that I had had at ConocoPhillips, I decided to fret about the deficiencies in knowledge that I perceived. My doing so was partially rooted in my individual tendencies, but also augmented by societal pressures. Women on the whole are more reserved in taking professional risks in the workplace. They tend to disproportionately diminish and dismiss their abilities compared to their male peers. Men are likely to volunteer or take the risks even when they aren't 100% certain that they'll succeed, where women tend to wait until the risk is almost certainly minimized and the rate of success certain. The problem herein lies that if we wait until we're certain we've minimized 100% of the risk, the opportunity is probably passed. So if you see an opportunity professionally that you know will bring you more joy, satisfaction, or fulfillment, don't let the fear of failure be what stands in your way. So from these anecdotes and just my professional experience on the whole, there are a couple of key takeaways that I hope you'll walk away from our conversation today just being reminded of. And after I point these out, I can't wait to turn it over and answer any questions you guys have or just continue the dialogue based on things that come to mind for you all. So the first thing I'll call out is don't be afraid to take that first job, even if it isn't something that just sets your soul on fire. Use it as an opportunity to learn what really does fulfill you in the workplace. And to do that, take actual note of what parts of your role you really are fulfilled by. Take note of the roles or duties of your peers or your bosses that you think will motivate you or you're curious to know more about. Take note of other roles in your company that you find interesting and why that is. And use this list to help you navigate your career with data about what you need to be motivated and fulfilled. In some seasons, this data may lead you to make internal changes, like what I did kind of several times at ConocoPhillips, or in other seasons to make moves to a completely different organization or industry, like what I did when I left to go work in philanthropy. I'd also encourage you guys to look for opportunities outside of the office to leverage your professional expertise with organizations. To create some fulfillment and to find more motivation back in the office. So while I'm deeply passionate about the work we do at LTFF, there are other causes that really are important to me in our community. Education specifically is something I'm really passionate about, and I've identified that improving educational opportunities for young Tulsans is something I want to play a more active role in. Because of the board governance experience I've gained from my work at the foundation, I've recently joined the board of a TPS charter school, where I'm able to use my professional skills to impact educational outcomes for elementary students. This board service at the charter school motivates me to continue learning as much as possible from the board of directors at the Lobeck Taylor Family Foundation, so that I'm able to make the greatest impact on students and their families at the school where I volunteer. Also, I would really encourage you all to advocate for your professional fulfillment because frankly, no one else will. I have no doubt that all of you will have great bosses and mentors throughout your career that will advocate for your professional development and your professional advancement. However, that advocacy is unlikely to be rooted in what motivates or fulfills you. So you have to be diligent in looking for those opportunities and speaking up and promoting yourself when you do find them. And then the final thing I'll leave you with is don't be afraid to take a chance, even if you're not 100% certain that the outcome will be successful. When I left the energy industry, I knew I had great experience to fall back on. So that first job that I knew probably wouldn't be my forever job became the safety net that allowed me to move forward. Because of that time at ConocoPhillips, I knew that even if the opportunity with LTFF didn't work out, I would have more than 5 years in one industry, coupled with whatever I would certainly learn at the foundation that would help me market myself either back into the energy industry or into something else completely. And having that super simple fallback plan reminded me that I'd be okay and helped me take the risk that completely changed my professional career for the better. So those are all the key takeaways I have for you guys and just some anecdotes about my professional career and kind of what I've learned in the last 10 years, but would love to answer any questions you have about what I shared or anything else that's top of mind for you in this space. So I'll stop talking.
Yeah, feel free to unmute if you have a question, or if you want to also turn on your video, that's also, an option as well, so we can see you, but feel free to jump in with any questions.
Meredith, I just want to thank you for being here and sharing these experiences. you know, yours and Suzanne's, just the way you're talking about your experiences and everything, mirror each other quite a bit, you know.
That's interesting.
I mean, just your perspective and, you know, how to motivate yourself. I mean, it's all about you and what you have to figure out yourself and what your desires are and what motivates you. How are you going to motivate yourself? It's not about so much others doing it. It's more, you know, about you. And I think sometimes as women, we kind of get lost in that, kind of what you were saying. We don't always realize that it's not so much about others. Sometimes it's about us, you know, and how we can function better, whether it be in our home or in our jobs or with relationships. And I think we forget about us, you know, me, myself, and I, because women are just more about taking care of others, you know, and it's important that we take care of ourselves too.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in expectations, right? So whether that's kind of what I was sharing about with my early in my career, like the expectation was that I would stay in this financial organization and I would follow the plan that they had for my career that, you know, for some people would pay dividends and be the career that they wanted. But I had to be really intentional and listening to myself to know, just because like someone else expects me to follow this trajectory and because it's what someone else has planned for me, doesn't mean that it's actually what I want and that's what's going to fulfill me. And so that's why I think it's super important to, as silly as this sounds, I mean, to really think about like when you're doing something at your job and you're enjoying it, don't forget to take note of that, right? Like it's important for us to recognize, what in my job do I like? And you may look at your role, like your first job out of college or your second job, and you might say, I really on the whole don't like what I'm doing. But if you can find pieces of that job that you do actually like, if there are 5 minutes a day that you are happy in that job, making note of what's going on in those 5 minutes that's making you feel encouraged or motivated is really important to help you make the best decision you possibly can about how to continue to make decisions for your career that's going to yield you that fulfillment and to help you find long term what's going to be the best space for you. I would have never imagined that, like when I was an econ student at OU 10 years ago, that I would be doing what I'm doing now, but it's because I was really intentional about figuring out, I love leading teams of people. I love managing big projects. I don't like the status quo. Some people love that, and that's incredible, and that's wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't love that. And so it was really important for me to start taking notes of those things so that I could figure out what I wanted to do. And it turned out where I had started wasn't going to be the place that was going to lead me to be fulfilled because of that. So thanks so much for your feedback. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a question. So you talk about how your first job wasn't really necessarily what you wanted to do and you had expectations from others. So what helped you stay focused on like finding what you did want to do and not getting sidetracked by what everyone else wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said it was easy. So there's that. You know, I think there's going to be a tension in this process, right? Because you want to, you know, you still want to do a good job in the role that you're in because that's going to help you advance to where you want to go, right? And so I think I knew that I probably needed to be in that role, that first role, for a couple of years, and just to at least if I wanted to do an internal transfer. And that's kind of what I had decided was the best thing for my career initially, based on the size of the company that I was in. It was like a 20,000 person company, so I had a lot of opportunity to move around internally, and I knew that. So I kind of said, you know, my next thing, I would like to try to stay internal. So that was something I made a decision for myself. And then I gave myself a timeline, and I said, I think I need to be in this job for 2 years to really be able to acquire the knowledge that I need to be proficient in my role, and then to be able to demonstrate proficiency of that knowledge and start to actually begin to implement some things in my role that will help me be more marketable into the next thing. And so I think that's part of it. It's just sort of setting like a timeline and expectations for yourself. And then, like I said, so you kind of do that helps you be successful where you're at, and maximize that. But then, like I said, during that 2 years, for me, I started to just be super intentional about saying, well, what am I liking about this? Like, I know I don't want to do this forever, but there are parts that I'm liking. And so, so then just really being probably from, I would say 6 months to 18 months of that 2 years, especially being super diligent about knowing what I actually liked. The first 6 months of the job, I was just trying to figure out like what my name was and what I did on a daily basis, right? But about that 6 month mark, I felt like I got in my groove and I sort of knew what the expectations were. And so for some 6 to 18 months of that year, I tried to be really diligent about thinking through what am I liking. And so at that 18-month mark, I could start to kind of open my eyes a little bit outside of what I was doing and start surveying the landscape for like what might be next. And then for me, for example, I was fortunate that I had interned at the company. And so one of the people that ran the intern program when I was an intern was actually still in that university relations group. And so she was someone I had actually just reached out to proactively before that job was even posted to learn more about what she did, because I knew I was enjoying that in my role that I was doing currently, right? And so that was something that I did that in turn, when that job opened, I had already sort of opened that door for myself a little bit, and it was easier then to pursue that opportunity because I had sort of like planted a little bit of a seed and started to like kind of water that relationship. So does that answer your question a little bit? I know I talked around it maybe a little bit. Okay, awesome. Nice to meet you as well.
Meredith, were you in Bartlesville? I'm trying to remember. I mean, I was there at the same time-ish. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And I actually remember you, and I was like, am I going to be weird and say something or no? But yes, yep.
Yeah, it's kind of the same story. You know, it was like, I thought I'm going to be tax. I'm going to do tax all the time. But I really enjoyed the more recruiting side. And then, so moved into our finance functional excellence group, and then enjoyed the teaching side, which led me to higher ed, which I absolutely love. So roundabout way, as an accountant, MBA, higher ed.
Yeah.
So, you know,
did you work with Vanessa Green?
I did. Yes, I did. Yep. Yeah.
Big and deep here. But yeah, I mean, it's like, while it feels like there's such a disconnect from where you started to now, there's really not. Like, you were super intentional about the steps that you were taking, and you were identifying piece by piece what you liked about each one of those that ultimately led you into the job that you have now.
Yeah. So awesome. Any other questions? We have about 7 seconds left before we send us back for final
Thank you guys for your questions.
All righty, I'm going to send this back.
Perfect.
Okay, let's see. We have almost everyone back. Looks like it, sort of. 4%. Okay. All right, so we're almost at our hour mark, but I wanted to see if anyone had any final questions, or if Suzanne, or Meredith had any final thoughts. I do want to thank you all so much for participating in this. Shout out to Zoom, breakout rooms worked. So, any final thoughts, or share contact information or anything, or any final questions? The floor is open.
I'll just say that if anybody does want to connect and have questions or think about, future decisions, I would be more than happy to have my information shared. So if you want to ask through the business college or whatever, please feel free, because you never know where you're going to find a good mentor. And there's a lot of people that helped me to get where I am, and I want to definitely offer that back and figure out. A lot of it you probably maybe know, you just need someone to talk it out with. That's a lot of times what happens.
And I will definitely echo that same sentiment as Suzanne, that I am happy to talk to anyone, and like you said, Suzanne, just be a good sounding board. So feel free to share my info too.
Yeah, Linnell, is there a way for us to share our information with this group specifically? Should we just share it in the chat section? Because I'm,
If you want to go ahead and share in the chat, and then I will capture it and then send it out to everyone who was on the call. Yep. Feel free to chat. And any questions? We got thumbs up. Awesome. All right, so on some of the things. So if you take a look at your chat, you'll see the email addresses coming in. So Susan, I'm extremely excited you're going to Atento Capital because I work with them quite a bit. So with Will Gray and, and internships and opportunities. So we will still be working together. Yay.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. My first official day is June 22nd. So
okay. All right. Yeah. Are you going to be down at the office at 36 Degrees North or?
Well, so right, they were at 36 Degrees North. They now have an office on the west side of downtown.
Okay. Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This is, I'm glad the logistics of the Zoom call worked out. And thank you to our two presenters. We could not have done it without you. This was wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
Thank you guys. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, of course.
See y'all later. Bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Good luck, everyone.
Yes. Good luck.